Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Diplomatic Enclave. I'm your host, Omar Khalid. But as is the tradition with our program, we interview diplomats, heads of organizations and people who try to promote their country in ours and our country in theirs and bridge the gap between the two. Today is no exception. I'll be talking to an entrepreneur who's been building relationship between her Nordic country and Pakistan through the different works over the years. She has been, if I would use the word, besotted by the country since she came here a couple of years back, and has been coming over and over again trying to find opportunities to link her country and ours. Now let's talk about her country. It's the country of Northern Lights, it's the country of Nokia, it's the country of Angry Birds. It's the country where we have a lot of very interesting festivals like the wife carrying festival, like when you get a PhD you're given a sword, and other very interesting topics that we're going to discuss with our guest. Our guest is an entrepreneur and her name is Lisamaria Markula. Lisa, thank you very much to have joined us on this show.
Thank you, Omar. It's nice to be here today as well. And I'm very pleased to talk about our relations with Finland and Pakistan.
Let's talk about Finland first. Finland is a cold Nordic country, has a lot of traditions. What are the peculiarities of a country like yours for someone who does not know Finland?
Well, first of all, as you said, it's a Nordic country, so our country is basically in the northern Europe. Most of the Pakistanis, when I tell I'm from Finland, they are like, Finland, where is that? What is that? Is that in the Asia? Is that in Europe? Is that in Latin America?
Well, it's in Europe. Yeah.
Well, most of the people have no idea, to be honest, and then I say, oh, it's like Sweden, Russia. Oh, okay, fine. So then they get it. But it's a small country, and we're a very humble nation. So we're not very much about posting our about selves. So that's why a lot of people wouldn't know about us. But as you know, like the only thing that people would maybe know is Nokia, and also
Angry Birds.
And Angry Birds. Another peculiar fact actually is that our country has the highest per capita rate for heavy metal bands in the world.
Oh.
So our nation is very much into heavy metal, symphonic metal, and we have lots of heavy metal festivals and concerts, especially during the summer. So we're very proud about those factors. And actually some of Pakistanis also do know these heavy metal bands like Nightwish and Him and so on. So and also a lot of countries with Sweden, we are part of the Viking culture as well. So we have some part of that, but we also have a lot of legacy with Russia, because we were 100 years part of Russia before we got independent 101 years ago, and before that we were 500 years part of Sweden. So you could say that, we are between the East and the West. So we're a combination racially and culturally of the both two.
All right, and is that Viking background the reason for which when somebody finishes his or her doctorate that you give him or her a sword and a top hat?
Well, it's a Swedish tradition. So yes, you could say that it comes from the Nordic and that Swedish culture to us, yeah.
All right. Speaking a little bit about the politics and the governance, you've also have a system just like ours here. You've got a prime minister who's the strongest personality there. Tell us a bit about how the government works in your country.
Sure. Basically, we've had a very much president-led system until about 2000. So when we started our country, we wanted to actually build a kingdom. So we had a German king for 63 days in our country. And then when First World War finished, we actually decided that we want to have a presidential system, and we wanted to have then we had a strong president until 2000. And the president is still much more than a figurehead, and he or she lets the lead of the foreign relations together with the foreign minister, and is still in charge of the Finnish church, of the Finnish army as well. We have actually compulsory army conscription for the men. 6 to 12 months. And actually, peculiarity that Amnesty International is still fighting for is that if you don't go to the army for your conscription, you'll be jailed.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, that law still exists?
Still exists.
All right.
So there's, although we're one of the best countries for human rights, there are still, some things to improve there. But in that sense, though, we also have he or she heads, that we have the two churches, Lutheran and Orthodox churches. So that's another peculiarity from the Russian era. There are not many countries actually in Europe who have Orthodox Church as their state church, and also from the Swedish era we still have Swedish as the other second language as well, although only a very small percentage of Finns speak Swedish, but it's still our compulsory language.
All right. Speaking of the languages, how many languages does one learn when one's going through one's schooling in Finland?
Well, the compulsory languages, it's Finnish and Swedish and English. So we have to take our two official languages, then English, and then most people opt for fourth or fifth language. Then the most popular languages after those would be German, French, Spanish, Italian, increasingly Chinese. So I myself, I speak 6 languages.
All right.
And I've learned 10. Okay. But that's, in Finland, that's like a normal thing.
All right.
So most of the people would know at least 3 to 5 languages.
Well, that's brilliant. I mean, I hope
nobody
other countries...
speaks Finnish. Finnish is such an odd language, actually. It's a part of the Finno-Ugric language family, and actually there is this theory about Euro-Altaic languages. So actually, it comes from Central Asia. That it is actually more related to Turkish language or Kyrgyz language, that is to any other European languages except for Estonian and Hungarian.
All right, so that's interesting to note, because how many people still speak the Finnish language in the world in your?
Well, I mean,
apart from the people from Finland,
there are 5.6 million Finns in Finland, and then I guess like few 100,000 that live abroad, but we're a small nation and we haven't been really big at immigrating outside the country.
You were talking about the education and about how many languages you learn during your education. Education is free in Finland.
Yes, it is free, and Finnish education is also rated as the world's best in terms of especially early childhood and primary as well as higher education. So we have some of the best teacher training programs also in the world, and yes, it is free, and we only start at 7 years old.
Why is that?
Because we believe that the children, their job until they're 7 is to play and is to enjoy. Because there are studies that say that if you are more motivated and interested about the things that you study and more learning critical thinking and collaboration, that is much more factor in academic success in your later life than the age that you learn how to read or write. So I only learned how to read and write when I was 7, like most Finns.
All right. How is the familial system? How is the system of raising a family in Finland all about?
Well, we have, let's say, it's not a collective system that you have here. It's much more individualist, and since we're little kids, we take much responsibility in what we do. So a lot of youngsters move out of their homes when they're 16 or 18, 19, 20 max. So it is very much independent. And I find it a little bit sad that that you don't keep so much touch with your family, especially cousins or aunts, or maybe you keep in touch with your mother and father and your grandparents, but that's about it. So I find it
the family remains restricted.
Family restricted.
All right. One of the advantages of having a country like Finland or living in one is not only do you have that icy cold weather, but you also have so many lakes to visit. I mean, there are more than 1,000 lakes, if I'm not wrong. There are
188,000 lakes, so it's called the land of 1,000 lakes. So it is. I mean, the countryside is it's very pretty, in terms of nature, and I would say that it looks more than the northern Pakistan without the mountains, because we're a very flat country. Our highest mountain in Finland is as high as Pirsuhava, what you have in Markula Hills here. So can't really compare.
All right. So So with so many lakes and other places to visit in Finland, how do you preserve the biodiversity of your country?
I think that's like inbuilt also like in the education system. So since we're little kids, we're all learning about recycling and nature preservation. So it is like in a whole country's like system, not like just individuals, but also we have very good nature preservation policies, and we have lots of natural parks. Actually, only 10% of the whole land in Finland is populated, and the rest is like lakes and forests.
All right.
So it is very much depopulated like country.
All right, and in all of these lakes and forests, does the government make measures to kind of preserve all of that? Because with that, you need to take a lot of care so that all the trees, all the different kind of species of animals, of plants, still remain and blossom normally.
For sure. I mean, that's why like we have lots of national parks that have been allocated. Most of the forests in Finland are government owned. And actually, even if they're privately owned, we have the every man's law. So you can even, have a visit to the forest and pick flowers and berries like in the forest yourself. And people are very, very like obedient when it comes to law of like not having litter, and people don't even think about it. It's not like here in Pakistan people really don't necessarily take care of the nature. So it is the municipality and also the government that make policies, and they have like municipal section that takes care of the environment as well, and we have the forestry department, but it's also the people who have initiatives to take care of.
All right. Speaking of people, how many different kinds of ethnicities can you find in Finland?
Not many, actually. We're one of the most homogeneous nations in Europe. We have approximately only 2% of our population which are foreigners, which are permanently living in the country. It's mostly Iraqi, Iranian from the 80s, and then Somalia and Vietnamese and Russia. It's mostly refugees that we've had taken, but we have quite a strict immigration and refugee policy.
All right. And why is that? Why have such a strict policy for a small country like Finland?
I mean, I think that's something like it was only like 15 years ago that Finland allowed dual nationality as well.
All right.
So we've been, and the immigration laws have been pretty much the same for almost 100 years. So I think at first it was, like we were still, after the Second World War, we only started industrializing. We were still a poor agricultural nation, like after Second World War, and we were one of the losers of the war as well. So it was still that time, I believe, more a policy that we have to like build our own nation first. But I think like there has been a lot of populist movement, unfortunately, in Finland as well in the recent years, where the like extreme right has been like taking hold. So there has been intent to change those policies, but that's one of the biggest governmental debates that we have, especially after the immigration flux, where we did get many immigrants in our country, but still we could have hosted more because, as I said, there is a lot of space in our country, and especially our employment rates. Actually, our population is decreasing, so we actually need more people, like in terms of to fill the gap that we're going to soon have when the baby boomers retire.
All right. Speaking of employment, what are the different sectors that boost the economy of Finland?
Yeah. So traditionally, we've had agriculture sector, and we still have a vibrant agriculture sector, and most Finns prefer to buy from Finland. So we still have a relatively big agriculture sector. That's pretty much the only sector which is not liberated in the sense that where we don't really pursue liberal trade policies. And then we have a big service sector, and pulp and paper are the other traditional wood sector. And in the service industries, we're very much like have been in the electronics and things like Nokia and Angry Birds and so on. Nokia at one point, constituted more than 20% of the corporate taxes in Finland. My town, Salo, completely relied on Nokia, so there was a huge crash, after 2012 when Nokia was acquired by Microsoft. But these days, we're still heavily reliant on manufacturing as well. But it is high technology manufacturing, so we're one of the leaders in Europe in high technology manufacturing, which is parts, products for airplanes, for cars, for cranes. We're one of the biggest in the world, Kone, for elevators and escalators. So it is a lot of these stainless steel products, as well as we're growing now in clean tech as well, and chemical industry is quite strong, and shipping industry has been one of the traditionals. So it has moved away much from only agriculture and a pulp and paper to refined manufacturing, machine manufacturing, as well as electronics and services.
All right. When you talk of clean tech,
Yeah.
I would like to talk about climate change because,
Yes.
of course, related to green
For
tech.
sure.
How much of importance does a country like Finland put or give to climate change? Because it's something that's plaguing the entire world as we speak.
It is. It's a very potent issue also in Finland that you can see now, especially this year. We had an extreme winter and an extreme summer. So we had.
I've heard the temperatures go till -51, if I'm not wrong.
Yes, they do. Yeah. So they that's the I think -53 is the lowest recorded ever. But normally it would it would stay -30, hardly.
For a country like Pakistan, to imagine going in a place with -30, that gives you the creeps.
But in the south, it's -5, -10. You'd be
Oh, right.
fine. No. But to be serious about it, we had over 35 degrees also this summer. So it is something that we are seeing, that the effects of climate change in Finland, and we are very concerned about it. And we are very much into taking steps internationally as well to fight climate change, especially in the Baltic Sea region, because Baltic Sea has been very much affected by climate change, and it's one of the polluted oceans. So we are taking steps with the NGOs as well as the government to combat it.
How strong is the NGO sector in Finland?
Very strong, very strong.
And why is that?
I think that's because, although we have a strong centralized government system as well, and we have a social democratic system, I think one of the key things it is people taking initiative and people taking responsibility for their own actions and for their environment. I think that's something that really comes from when we're 3-4 years old. That's something that we are taught since day we were born, and from the kindergarten. So that's I think one of the key things, that we really take care of our environment and we really want to do good for our society. So that's one of the things that people really are looking towards the NGO sector as well.
All right, great. Looking forward to the society, working for the benefit of the society brings me to human rights. You are also one of the champions of human rights as far as Finland is concerned. One of the first countries to give women the right to vote. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so we were second country in the world after New Zealand in 1906 to give right for females to vote. And we've been since champions of female rights. And we've had country heads, prime ministers, one of the first defense ministers that were female from Finland. In our government, we have half of the government is female. A lot of our national parliament is also female. In the boards of companies, at least normally 1/3 of the board is female. So we do give a lot of chances for female. We do. Some companies use a quota system, but we like also to really touch females on the merits. And I mean, in terms of performance in education, female outperform. It's the only country in the OECD that outperforms in reading, in writing, in maths, in sciences. The girls outperform the boys, as well as the PISA results, where we've been leading since 2000.
Tell us about the OECD and the role of Finland in it.
I think what Finland, because only until the Cold War ended, Finland had to balance between the East and the West. So we were militarily and politically non-aligned country until we joined European Union in 1995. We still haven't joined any military alliances, so we're still militarily non-aligned. Although we have a partnership with NATO, so we want to keep like a neutral position, and we want to be always the champions of human rights, female rights, as well as like democracy in those organizations, and we want to like make the small countries heard. So we are very active in the European Union. We've been always, for example, in the European Union, being in the core, and we've been favoring the economic the euro. We adopted euro, one of the first countries, and also the political cohesion and alignment of European Union, and we have, like, in terms of trade, I mean, we're like 1/3 of our GDP comes from the foreign trade, so obviously we are very much reliant on the global trade. And recently we've been expanding also our trade, not just from Russia, the traditional players like Russia, Germany, Sweden, Netherlands, US, UK, also to China. So China also has an increasing importance economically with Finland. So we're also trying in OECD to diversify our trade partnerships, so that because the global recession didn't hit Finland so hard as many other countries, because we are a lot of times self-reliant, but actually when there was more of a financial crisis in Russia, that hit us harder because we're much reliant on them for export and import as well.
Speaking of developing trade relationships with countries, which are those that you have the most strongest of relationships as far as imports and exports are concerned?
As I said, like Russia is one of our biggest trade partners, like obviously due to our history as well. And after World War II, like we also like paid the war reparations to Soviet Union in industrial goods. So we've had very solid industrial relations with them for a long time. And obviously Sweden and Germany are good trade partners. But as said, like we also want to diversify, and we're looking at Latin America as well. And we are also recently started to look more beyond the traditional Asian countries that we trade, like China and India. But we are also now looking at Southeast Asia. So there's been now trade delegations also to Myanmar and Vietnam as well in the recent years.
All right, brilliant. Now, there's a lot of hard-working people in Finland, but Finland is also considered to be one of the happiest, if not the happiest nation in the world. Why is that, and how is that?
I think, it's funny for us to talk about, the happiness, because we don't necessarily think ourselves that we would be the happiest in the world, and we're always surprised, that we're in the top. But I think like one of the things and why it is that because we have one of the best living standards in the world. Finland is rated as the best country to live in, the best country to be a mother, the best country to be a female, the best country in terms of innovation, in terms of the schooling, and a lot of other things. So the thing is, I think it really comes to that, you're feeling safe and secure, you have a good living standard. You don't need to, the government takes care of you if you're unemployed, if you're sick. We have a very good social benefit system for students and for unemployed and sick and so on. So in that we have a very much security in terms of economy and in terms of also physical security. And that's where you don't have to really worry about these things, that you can start building on other things. And I think we have very much enjoy the social activities, and we have a very good work-life balance. So we actually work one of the less hours in the world.
And how many hours is that?
Well, I mean, we work 7.5 hours is the norm to work per day. But in that 7.5 hours, you still have 2 coffee breaks of of 15 minutes.
All right. And the lunch break as well.
Lunch break is then like for 30 minutes, which makes it 8 hours in total that we work. So in that sense, we are one of the most productive nations as well.
Right.
But that's because of the happiness. I think like when people have more time to do what they really are passionate about as well, and have time to devote for their families and friends, then they are more productive and happy as well. I think so. That's where the productiveness and happiness comes from.
Productiveness and happiness also depends on whatever you do to have fun, to enjoy, whether with friends or with family. So what are the things that one does with friends in Finland normally? What are the habits of the people in Finland?
We're very much a sport nation, so we love our sports. So people like would go jogging, hiking, running and so on, and then obviously people play a lot of ice hockey, which is our national sport, and then different types of sports and gym and so on. So we really also we're very much also a singing nation, so we love our choirs. We have a lot of festivals and
you
choirs.
like heavy metal as well as
and heavy metal. so very much music. I think like music and sports are very much like apparent in our lives in terms of like what we do in our free time, and obviously spending time with your friends and family. But a lot of the times we meet our friends, in these music and other activities, and obviously. People do like traveling as well within Finland and abroad.
All right. Finland is the country of the Northern Lights.
Yes.
I mean, this is a delight to watch, even when you watch it on different videos.
Yes.
What are the other things that one should go and look out for when one visits Finland?
I think like one of the things is definitely our clean nature. Like a lot of people who come to Finland really appreciate the beautiful nature, the forest and the lakes, and also like the clean air. And it's very silent in Finland. So like the foreigners are very, oh wow, like you can hear your thoughts and you can really be at peace. So and especially
there's minimum of noise pollution.
Yeah, we do. That is definitely there, and foreigners really enjoy to go to Lapland, especially in autumn when there are magnificent autumn colors, just like here in Pakistan in Hunza, and then also in the winter to see the northern lights and visit the Santa Claus, because we have the real Santa Claus, not the North Border, not the Swedes, and obviously you have to visit the Finnish sauna. Sauna is very famous in Finland.
And I've heard there are restaurants in which you can find saunas, you can eat and then go to the sauna directly.
Yeah, there are some restaurants that do that, yeah. But actually, that's one of fun fact of Finland. We have more saunas in Finland than we have individual cars.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, that is how much the people love going to a sauna.
Yes. Some people go like the sauna every day.
Oh, I think that's mostly because of the temperature as well.
It's the temperature, yeah. I mean, like obviously, like in winter it's very cold, so obviously, like we enjoy the sauna, but we're quite crazy about the sauna because we go first in 100 degrees in the sauna. You whip yourself with a birch bark, and then you go into an icy lake of 4 degrees, and you swim there. You roll in the snow.
Just like in Russia, a little bit, just like in Russia.
Yeah. It is like that. So it's quite extreme temperature, but
and
it's actually
very good for health.
It's very good for your health. It's very good for circulation. Yeah.
All right. Which brings us to Pakistan, the country where we kind of found you.
Yeah.
What brings you to Pakistan? I've heard this is not your first trip to Pakistan.
No.
This is not the first time you're working in Pakistan. You kind of developed this love and this relationship with Pakistan since the last couple of years. Tell us a little bit about its history.
Yeah, so I used to work for this student organization called ISEC, which is very much active here in Pakistan, and I met these funny, friendly, amazingly vibrant, energetic bunch of people in a conference of ISEC in Malaysia in 2009, and they were from Pakistan. So I was like, had a great time with them, and then they invited me for a conference in Lahore that same year. So I came as a trainer here, and I just loved meeting all these students with a lot of passion, with a lot of energy, with a lot of vision, how to change the country for the better. So then I decided to apply for the country manager of ISEC in Pakistan, and I got the job, and then I was living in Karachi in 2010-11. and I had a great time here, and I was really feeling that I can finally make the impact, because I've been studying political and social sciences, and always since I was a little kid, since I was 5 years old, I've been saying to my mom that I want to change the world. So so
make it a better place.
Yeah, make it a better place. So I mean, that's why Pakistan really, in terms of the culture, in terms of the people, and also in terms of the mission, what I want to do in life, I really find that in Pakistan. And a couple of years back, after I was working in Mexico in corporate sector, I found that I was really missing this country. So I came back a couple of years ago, started my own company as a social enterprise. I work with the education and in development sector. So I work with bringing the world's best education system here to Pakistan with the teacher training and so on. Currently in private sector, and I also run this Tanke, my own e-commerce venture, where I try to help out the underprivileged female artisans in Gilgit-Baltistan and KPK with their products, marketing their products abroad. And this is what I'm wearing currently today. It's the Hunza Patti and so on. So I'm really committed for the cause of making this society a little bit better place, and I feel that here I can really make an impact.
All right. Speaking of Pakistan and the two sectors that you work in, A, education, and B, e-commerce, and C, women empowerment, because there's also an indirect kind of impact of your e-commerce.
It is a direct impact of my e-commerce.
Education-wise, how has the reaction been from people when you started your venture in Pakistan? How enthusiastic are the Pakistanis, in your point of view?
I think in terms of enthusiasm, people are very much enthusiastic about the Finnish system, because they've heard so much about it. There are a lot of videos that have gone viral. Finland, first country in the world to take out subjects, and we have no homework, a lot of breaks, and so on.
Because homework, we've got a lot in Pakistan.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
somebody could tell us no homework.
We do have homework. It's not that we don't have any. We just have 15 to 30 minutes homework per day. Yeah, and we don't. It's not we got rid of subject, but we have phenomenon-based learning. We integrated the different subjects. But in any case, it's been very positive response. However, a lot of people are apprehensive about how can you implement such a free and system which is government based and which have so much less homework and less subjects and so on in Pakistan. So I think that has been the challenge here. But we have now started working. Last year we ran a early childhood teacher training program as well as principal management program, and this year we've already started with a couple of private schools in maths teacher and trainer training programs, and it's progressing. And we did our first thing with the Aga Khan Foundation for the public sector as well. So we've heard amazing feedback when they have started to implement the Finnish pedagogies, and when they have understood the value of having the same curriculum that they're following, but still with the focusing on how can you make this curriculum better, how can you teach it in a better way, then they have understood that there is actually value, there is a benefit of adopting these Finnish methodologies.
All right. And speaking of methodology, especially in the form of education, it's not an easy task to tell a child to learn something. It has to be very interesting, like a very interesting habit, or like a game, or watching a nice film, or going outdoors. The child, whether it's a boy or a girl, needs to be fully immersed into it.
Yes.
How does the Finnish system help a boy or a girl do that?
Our whole system is based on the child's interest and on the joy of learning. So when the child, for example, if they're in kindergarten at the age of 3, we don't have subject per se there. We have orientation. So, for example, we would teach maths and music and biology together. We would go on a park, on a forest outing. We would calculate the trees, maths. We would be singing music, and then we're in a forest environment. We would be learning about the animals, so biology integrated there. So we do it in an integrated way, and that then when, for example, we have these free play time, the children themselves can choose who they play with and what they're gonna do. So they can choose board games, they can choose cars, dolls, whatever they want. They have different corners, and based on their interest, and the kindergarten teacher's role is more to observe and to facilitate the children, and then to encourage the children on their interest and encourage like what could you better do for the children to learn more on the subject. And then we always ask the children, so we have children's meetings from kindergarten onwards where the children and the parents take part in the planning, because our national curriculum is not fixed. Teacher can have the authority to actually change the curriculum like to fit their classes.
So what happens at the higher level of education? I mean, in the beginning, of course, you can adapt to the curriculum, you can change it, but of course, as the boy or the girl gets more specialized in the education sector, in his or her education, the things become more complicated, or do they in Finland?
Well, I mean, obviously they do, but the thing is that in like primary and still in like lower secondary, until they go to high school, they very much, especially in the primary, still use projects as well, for example. So we started recently teaching entrepreneurship, coding, as well as a lot of technology-based, like with the usage of technology. So in that sense, like the children learn now, like through projects, through teamwork, since they enter the school. So for example, they now, when they start the entrepreneurship projects, they at grade 6, they will be the CEOs, they will be hiring their own teams, they will be, for example, developing their own e-commerce sectors based on their interests. So in that sense, like we still have that play or the fun element there when they can be pursuing like their own interests within the schooling system. And also in high school, we have specialized high school, just like we have specialized kindergarten for science or for music. We also have that same in high school. So you can go to a high school, take the compulsory subjects, but then also have extra subjects in science or in maths or theater. For example, I went to speech and drama high school where I had theatrical subjects because that is my passion. So in that sense, you know, like you still cultivate that. And in university, it's we have a lot of choice. Even if you have had your major, we have a lot of choice of minors. So you can take as many minors as you want. So you still have the freedom there. Academic freedom is there from throughout the whole system. And there is much avenues to pursue your interests. And we have after schools clubs and so on as well.
All right, so one of the things that Finland also specializes is known is in the innovation sector that you talked about in the beginning as well. And e-commerce, of course, is one way of linking that innovation, because you need to be have a certain idea and develop it, and it's through innovation that you develop those ideas. Speaking of e-commerce, how strong is Finland as far as e-commerce is concerned?
I think like Finland could be stronger like in terms of e-commerce, although we have a lot of technology startups in Finland. It is still much traditional, like people still like to go to shops and so on. However, it has been growing, and it has like been in Finland for longer, for example, that it's been here. But I think like it's been more rapidly growing here that it has been in Finland. I don't know necessarily all the statistics, but that's how I perceive it. Like so people. I think like a lot of the brands are investing on social media and e-commerce, and it is like a big factor in picking up. Especially, I mean, the clothing business, people do e-commerce, and in technology sector. I mean, technology, like these kind of microphones or headsets, whatever those kind of things, and laptop. People buy a lot of that in e-commerce. But I think there's still a hesitation in terms of like the mindset that people still want to try things out.
Exactly.
In an old-fashioned way.
Well, trying things out in the old-fashioned way, you didn't do that as far as your e-commerce is concerned.
No.
You just went inside, went to the northern areas of Pakistan and said, oh yes, I want to start an e-commerce with the people of Pakistan. What brought you to that?
Actually, that's a very good question, and it was a very long winding route. I was thinking actually because I'm a trainer, so like I had been thinking on this lines that could I do something for these females up north as a trainer, And then we were thinking different training programs, but there's a language gap, there's a educational gap there. So I think then we were thinking, okay, what can the females do well? And most of these females sit at their homes and they're very skilled in handicrafts. It's like, okay, so what can we do to help these women? And one of the things that they're lacking, when I was discussing with different NGOs and UNDP and so on, and also the females themselves, they were saying market access. They're lacking, the design and market access. So I was like, okay, so what can I do? So I have now started some collaboration, for example, with one Finnish brand, with the Swatian scarves. So we get the thread from Finland, and then they produce, the females made it in Swat, and then we send it back to Finland. So that's one source of revenue for these females. And for example, also with so that's one thing. So linking up these women with some international or local brands. Other thing is the e-commerce. So I develop the products with them. So I take out some of their designs and then refined it into a more international a cut and design. And then currently I've been selling in Finland, and hopefully I'll be expanding to other countries as well. So that they get the market access, and that leads to economic empowerment for them. Because what I really want to do is that to bring them fair employment. Because and I don't I take a very I don't want to be the middle agent there. I want to work directly with the women so that they get a fair price of their work.
I think that's very important, to give women their right and to give women this their empowerment in all the different regions, whether it be in Finland or whether it be in the north of Pakistan.
For sure.
I think that's very important, because when you are empowered, whether you're a man, a woman, or a child or an elderly, that's when you develop yourself as a person. And that's when you become a better person as well, and teach people around you.
Yeah, and also it's and I think one of the key factors is also that I've kind of felt somehow a similarity or something like affiliation with these women, because my grandmother, she was a textile worker herself, and she was a textile teacher in the northern rural areas of Finland. So I kind of think that I'm following my grandmother's footsteps doing this. Though I'm not a textile expert myself. I haven't done any schooling on marketing, textile design, photography, e-commerce, but I have built the e-commerce website myself, done the photography, fashion design, everything from scratch, just because I wanted to help these ladies.
All right. Being from the northern part of Europe and coming all over to Pakistan, did you at any point of time feel uncomfortable security-wise, or being a woman, or being a woman from the West in a country like Pakistan that people have so many perceptions about?
There has been certainly times that I felt uncomfortable with in some social settings. In terms of my safety, I've never really had an issue with that. And even though I was living in Karachi in let's say, some people say the sensitive years in 2010-11, and there was more sectarian violence and so on, I didn't feel unsafe. I really feel safe with the Pakistani people and how they are really so hospitable. I find them, out of the over 55 countries I visited, I find them most hospitable. So in terms of safety, I've not had a concern. But in terms of uncomfortable being a Western woman, yes, that sometimes does happen, because people that do have certain notions about what is a Western girl and so on. So I certainly, especially in the corporate world, I do have sometimes uncomfortable moments with that.
But you've changed that perception, haven't you?
Yes, that's what I normally try to do, and and it's I always get people always ask me, why Pakistan? Why you're here? A lot of people come here for diplomatic service, and my schooling is also on that, but I chose to do it through a social enterprise rather than going through that route, and or they come through love, and I just came here myself because I believe that I can make a difference here, and I believe that Pakistan has so many opportunities, and I really love this country, and I feel that there's so much that we can do together. like between our countries, and how much Pakistan can also teach Finland. Like I think, like in terms of like all these setting up e-commerce systems, or setting up like these kind of small technology startups. I mean, Pakistan is really doing a great job with it.
As far as entrepreneurship is concerned, Pakistan is going ahead
Yes.
by miles when it compares to other countries.
Yeah.
Also, you've been to a lot of places in Pakistan. Tell us a little bit about the places that you've loved here.
Well, my special love goes out to the northern areas. I mean, I just love Hunza. It's just so beautiful. And I just love the mountains here. Like also in Markula Hills, I call them mountains in my standards. So I love going hiking here and, just looking at the mountains, because we don't have this in Finland. And in Swat Valley, these are very beautiful areas. I have been living in Islamabad, for the nature. But I also love Karachi because it's a very vibrant city. I have a lot of friends there. So it's always feels like a home to go back there. Knowing my way around, like where to go, take shortcuts and so on. So there are, a lot of places also in Sindh, like Ranikot Fort as well. So I mean, there's Taxila just nearby. So I think like there are a lot of places to visit here, and I think there has been in the recent couple years, tourists have started to come here, and a lot of vloggers and bloggers are now posting about Pakistan and like discovering it, and really especially love the northern areas.
Wonderful. And what about the food? Is the food in Finland as spicy as it is in Pakistan?
Well, I mean, we have one of the most bland foods in the world, as
That's why I asked the question.
In terms of that, we don't really use spices. We don't even necessarily use salt or pepper or sugar either. So, having brought up in a country like that,
and coming here and
it's been an adventure. I've certainly had my share of these kind of hygiene problems,
right.
stomach viruses and so on. But I think like after living in Pakistan, I've never had to suffer them in any other country.
But I mean, as far as the amount of vegetables, fruits, and
I love the fresh fruits.
Spices.
I'm a vegetarian, so I really love the fruits and vegetables here. A few years back, it was really actually challenging to find vegetarian food, and the concept was very unfamiliar here. But these days, I mean, all restaurants are very familiar with having vegetarian food, and I especially like have pakore and samosa here.
So when you go back to your country, what do you bring back for your friends from Pakistan as far as your memories are concerned, and also a little bit of things like the shawls and the clothes that you know?
So I've been like lately bringing things like from my Tanke collection. So like they've been buying some of the clothes there, and as well as some scarves. So previously I was bringing like some scarves, because these scarves are quite expensive in Finland, and like Pakistan you get them in a more affordable price. And I buy them these days from the females themselves. So it's great to know I also have a face for whoever I'm buying it from. And then I like to bring like dried fruits and some dates or apricots and these things back home.
So you've kind of become also an ambassador for Pakistan in Finland, haven't you?
Oh, for sure. I mean, anywhere I go, like anywhere I've been almost in the last 10 years, I've been changing perceptions of Pakistan all over the world. So, I mean, people are always amazed to hear that, how come you're there? And, like, don't you face so many issues and this and that? And what can you wear? And, how they treat you? And I'm like, well, you can wear, I mean, almost the same things that in the West, just to having some cultural consideration. But I mean,
and the respect for women is also there, of course.
Yeah. I mean, I've not had an issue most times with it. So.
All right, great. So at the end, I can say that you have been more or less that ambassador from Finland who's been promoting the relationship between both countries, not only in tourism, but in education, as well as in commerce. How do you foresee this relationship becoming stronger in the coming years?
Well, I mean, there hasn't been a Finnish embassy in Pakistan for the last 5 years or so. So I'm really hoping that we would be opening the embassy again.
And it's due to efforts of people like you that maybe they'll do the effort.
Yeah, and there has been like a few other like independent consultants who've been doing work in Pakistan in the recent years as well. Finnish-Pakistani trade is very minute, but it's, you know, Pakistan represents like 0.01% of the Finnish trade, but it's but it has been picking up in the recent years. In the recent years, it has third-folded in ICT and energy sector, and now, you know, we're promoting the education sector as well. So I foresee that, you know, it's going to continue. And there has been delegations of Finland coming to Pakistan and delegations of Pakistan going to Finland as well, especially from the Punjab side. So hopefully it will be picking up. And I think, and last year when there was 100 years of Finland celebrated, so that brought more image of Finland in here in Pakistan, but the same the other way around. And I've been always trying to promote like the cultural aspect, the tourism, as well as the trade and the development. So sometimes like people are like, well, you know, you are kind of your self-made ambassador or self-made diplomat. Although you didn't pursue that career, you made that career for yourself. And I try to, you know, be that ambassador for both countries, like so that, because I believe that, you know, we could learn a lot things and work from each other and work in a much more concrete manner in the future.
All right. So we're very optimistic about the relationship between Finland and Pakistan as far as the coming years is concerned. And it's due to efforts of people such as Lisamaria markula that these two countries are coming together in different fields. And with the time and the passage of time, we'll see more and more of that. Thank you so very much, Ms. Markula, to have given us the time, to have given us an insight about Finland and also the relationship that people like you are strengthening and developing between Finland and Pakistan. And we wish you all the very best.
Thank you so much. My pleasure to come here.